All right. Let's see if this works. Is the stream starting? Is it not? Am I muted? Am I not? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Okay, I can hear myself. I think that's good. How are you guys doing? Welcome to Sunday, the 16th of March. And me having nothing better to do than to hang out and have a couple of beers. How are you guys doing? Hey, the Demi-Drac is here. I guess we're all saved from the worm. Hey, Apollo, how are you doing? Yeah, I arrived back home a couple of hours ago and realized that nothing else is going on. I'm like, I might as well. Might as well hang out with you guys. Let's see if a couple more people show up. And if you, yeah, I assume you can hear and see me. I could hear myself, so I guess that's good enough for me. All right. Well, I guess we can start festivities and all of that. Well, cheers, everybody. So yeah, I returned from a quick weekend trip to visit my mother and do all the things and carry around some big plants and stuff. Did go and visit the horse and hung out with the horse for a bit. Fun things. Hello, Britain. How are you doing? Wonderful. Hello, John. How are you doing? And hello, Jeroen. How are you doing? Here we go. So yeah, that's what I did. Did get some reading done because train trips are perfect for listening to audiobooks, and so that's what I did. I did finally get through the first, like, I guess, third or so of Summer of Fire and Blood, and it's good so far. Like, if you're interested in a history of the German Peasants' War, that is. Good introductory work, I guess, more like an overview kind of thing. Which I assume is something that most of you really, really, really needed in your life, right? Well, there is always more Discwork. So first, I'm very glad that you enjoyed the first one that you tried. So that's a good start. And Titus Grown is an amazing book. It's a very weird book, but it's an amazing book. I'm very much looking forward to finding out what you think about it. Oh, how is the Harrison one? I've been eyeing that one, thinking about reading it at some point. I think it kind of interests me more than the Vandermeer stuff. So yeah, very much interested in your take on Wish I Was Here. So yeah, I did read some Audre Lorde stuff yesterday and the day before. So selected works of Audre Lorde, edited by Roxane Gay, and then also what's it called, Sister Outsider, which are both, obviously collections of essays and speeches and poetry and so forth. Impressive writer, Audre Lorde. But I already knew that. And there's some overlap between the two, but that's like usually the thing if you're reading someone who published a ton of essays and obviously poetry and stuff. And when that stuff's collected, you have some overlap. Technically, I mean, kind of same thing depending on what you read. If you're reading, a lot of like old sword and sorcery authors, you have the same thing, right? I haven't read Southern Reach yet. I did read Finch by Vandermeer, and I did really enjoy that one. That one was really cool, but I don't know what I will think of Southern Reach. I will read Southern Reach at some point in the future, though. I mean, obviously. Hello, Joe. How are you doing over there in the wonderful land of everything, always and all at once? I guess something like that. Um, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think he called it like an anti-memory or something. So it is sort of like a memory, a memoir, but also like a weird, yeah, sort of like more than just a memoir kind of thing. So which kind of fits once again with the guy, right? Because at the end of the day, Harrison is someone who's constantly sort of like probing the edges of what a specific genre can do or cannot do or is not supposed to do. I have not or never read Mere Christianity. I obviously know it exists, but um, I've read other theology over the years, so I don't necessarily need to read that one. I'm not a tortured writer, but I do really appreciate what Andrew Harrison is doing as a writer. So having that is more like it's a Harrison book. I'm going to read it. You know, no big deal. So it's going to happen. Just a question of when. Always, as I say, the great when. So yeah, I'm gonna finish the Summer of Fire and Blood tomorrow. I think it's not that long for like. I mean, it's sort of on that sort of edge between being pop history and being like more academic sort of like introductory work to overview work over the German Peasants' War. What's interesting is that right in the first chapter, Lyndall Roper does already mention one Alexander Seitz, which is a German who wrote some really interesting prophetic broadsheets in the 1520s about the coming second deluge, which is something I wrote a term paper on in 16th century history at university, and so it was nice to see a lot of the people that I dealt with for that term paper come up in this book. Made me feel all important and well educated for once. Hello, biggest. Wait, you're already awake again after St. Patrick's? How you doing over there on the green island of yours, biggest? Yeah, I had to read a bunch of Christian apologetics for my final exam in philosophy because I was, obviously doing metaphysics and philosophy of religion stuff, and I did read a lot of Alvin Planninger's, you know, complex logic proofs for the existence of God, which is very much something you can read if you want to melt your brain with, you know, very complex logic. I don't necessarily recommend it though. I mean, Planninger in general is fine. It's just that yeah, true. I guess it became a weekend thing when everyone decided that they wanted to drink, and it's not a bank holiday or anything outside. Is it official holiday? I assume it's an official holiday for you tomorrow. So like, but everyone else needs to go to work tomorrow except for me, so they start drinking on Friday because I've been seeing people drink the entire weekend. Ah, okay. I'm not quite sure which one you mean, Apollo. So the one that I'm reading right now is about it has a bit about the Bundschuh and stuff, but that's all like southern Germany as well. So are you talking about the Arme Konrad? But that's also more southern Germany, I think. Um, so I'm not quite sure. Hello, Kadia. How are you doing? Yeah, so everyone, good for you. Everyone else has been drinking since Friday, I assume. Well, not me. I was not exactly drinking on Friday. In general, lot of the early 16th century peasant uprising stuff happened more in the south and east. So, like a lot of around like Baden-Württemberg, that area around Heilbronn, the Breisgau, that area is more where a lot of that stuff happened, and then moved over to Thuringia when Martin Luther, a well-known anti-Semite, misogynist, and all-around massive asshole, stabbed the peasants in the back when he realized that no, I didn't mean that kind of freedom when I said freedom, right? You're getting this all wrong. Please go back and bow to your lords. That's what I meant, right? I thought he was chasing out snakes and stuff, right? Wasn't that like the plan? Um, Depending on the type of snake, I feel like Jesus is a solid exchange, but one Jesus versus like millions of snakes. At least there's only one of them, right? Hey, also, how are you doing? So, yeah, and fiction-wise, I'm gonna read something tomorrow next week. But what is everyone else reading at the moment? Obviously, Britain. I know that you will be starting the thing that I've heard about. Titus Grown and Jerome already said. Like, what's everyone else reading these days? Oh, Dietmarsch. No, I don't think that's a different era, I think it's not like the 1520 something with Thomas Münzer and that gang. Well, one of them is incredibly short and incredibly well written. Also, the other one not so much. But hey, the other one was written by a Nazi, so I guess good, or at least certainly timely and beingly, I guess. The Book of Coley. What's that about? I mean, I know it's R. Carey, but I haven't checked what it is about. So who knows? On Tuesday, the Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones is going to be out, so I'm cautiously eyeing that one. Although I don't know when I will actually start it. Time marked Warlock. Yeah, that's a very John kind of quote. Well, I mean, Britain, you're gonna get all the whiskey in the world because you can't export it to the EU anymore, can you? Or at least no one's gonna buy it in Canada either. So I guess whiskey prices will go down in the US now. Oof. That sounds like the most terrible power a warlock could have. I have never heard of it though. Is it self-pub or something else, Joe? Well, I did reread Wizard of the Pigeons last week and finally made a video about it. And yeah, I do really like that book. It's a very good book. Maybe I should go and reread some Robin Hobb at some point. Now that would be like if I had that ability, Jeroen, I would probably go heavily into like fur production or something. No, I did, and to be fair, I did have fun with Once Was Villain. It was a lot of fun as a book, except for the fucking potatoes. Oh, I don't mind. I don't mind the power of creating Groundhog Days at will. I was more like, I don't know if that's a book I want to read, but because I guess it's sort of like more on the lighter side of things when it comes to like humor and stuff, and that is so fucking personal that I always struggle with that kind of story because I'm not a very humorous kind of person. Look, Britain, most powers are oddly specific. That's kind of the point. See, that's one of the things. Like when I did the video for the Wizard's first, not Wizard's First Rule. Gods, no, never. Wizard of the Pigeons. I watched some of the other videos on YouTube, and I found it so fascinating that everyone was complaining about the how the magic system is not explained properly, and I'm like, haven't you read the fucking book? You even talk about how it's a metaphor for trauma, and then you want like rules. How? Why? Highly frustrating. But then I realized that my video is as long as all the 4 videos on the book that I watched. So I guess. But yeah, maybe I should. So I mean, I read The Wizard of the Pigeons earlier this year, so maybe I'm going to go back and make some videos next week for some of the other stuff that I already read earlier this year. Like I don't know. It is very. So here's the thing, Britain. Obviously, Nuke Robinson maybe slightly, but that's more because both authors are British, and if so, it's more that Nuke Robinson took in some of Lankmar. But yeah, Ankh-Morpork is directly influenced by Lankmar in in several ways. There's like some direct nods and references to it in some of the early books. So yeah, like At some point, he calls it the city of the brown toga because Langmar famously being the city of the black toga. And you have the Thieves Guild, which is very similar to the Thieves Guild in Langmar. And in the first book, in Color of Magic, there's two characters showing up that are called Brav, the Hublander, and the Weasel. So yeah, the Discworld, no, the Discworld Navon sort of like connection is explicit in many ways. Hello, Daniel. How are you doing? Also, how can you ever forget about Langmar? Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Britain. That's exactly that. Brav, the Hublander, and the Weasel. That's part of the first story in the first book. That is, of course, The Color of Magic, where you have the whole situation when Rincewind and the tourists are escaping the burning city of Ankh-Morpork, which is currently burning down, and Brav, the Hublander, and the Weasel are sitting on a hill and watching the whole thing. Exactly, Britain. Although, what with the lag between the stream and the chat, it takes me a second to read what you're doing because, yeah, there's like 5 seconds, 10 seconds lag between for the stream, which is it's not very fast. But yeah, but obviously, the New Krobison as a massive city setting with corruption and everything in it and dirt in it. Obviously takes also from Lankmar as sort of like the one of the original sort of like non-Tolkien city settings, which you can tell because Tolkien cities kind of suck. It's not exactly someone who writes good cities, is he? Kind of makes sense because Tolkien not exactly a big fan of cities. Hello, Ori. How are you doing? I was very happy to see that earlier this year, this week, I saw maybe that George Alec Affinger's Buddha Nights is finally getting a re-release and also like an audiobook, which is the remaining stuff that is also set in the Buddha together with obviously When Gravity Fails and the two other Marit Odran novels whose titles escape me right now, but they're also based on song titles and highly recommend reading those stories if cyberpunk is your thing and you want lots of trans characters and lots and lots and lots of drugs, like way more drugs than in Neuromancer. Um, yes, that's possible. Hmm. I am not fully convinced of that specific take of Adrian Tchaikovsky's. Like, I like his takes on insects. He's good on that, but I guess it kind of depends on what he means by new, right? On like a geological scale, yeah, sure, it's very new. No, it's When Gravity Fails, and the other two are something something the sun and something something else. Hey, Jew. Yeah, it is. Nessus is very ancient, and even more ancient when you get further along and realize that the city is, well, insanely massive. It's also very psychedelic. I don't know how far in you are, which is why I'm careful with what I say about Shadow of the Torturer. But holy shit, do I like the duels, the duel stuff. Hey Chantel, how you doing? Okay, yeah. So I guess what you're saying is that he wants to come up with like a genre title for it that is not urban fantasy, because urban fantasy is obviously something else these days. But it's yeah, I can see why he wants to do that, because there is something to that. Yeah, Britain. I think that the parallel may also just be that both of them are British, and when they're thinking about massive cities, they both, beyond fantasy inspirations, they both probably have London in mind, and so I guess there's some parallel inspirations for both Mieville and Pratchett there. Well, I still have to actually read some what's his face, Adrian Tchaikovsky. It's more that as long as everyone tells me to read Tchaikovsky, I won't read Tchaikovsky. Oh, thanks, Ori. I will read that. I think um, no, no. Pratchett has a different approach. He does deal with similar sort of like themes in later Discworld novels, when it's about poverty in an urban space, and class conflict in an urban space, and so forth. He does have those elements, but his approach is a less grimy one, I guess, a less graphic, less graphics style in a lot of ways. So I get where you're coming from there, Britain. I know that approach also. I think you will, in fact, like the Book of the New Suns, because it's one of the few novels that is sort of fantasy that is not set in a European setting. I'll leave it at that. It's very clearly a non-European setting, and you can find out where on this here planet it is set from some clues. By which I mean, the terror birds and dinosaurs. Um, yeah, the George Alec Effinger stuff is amazing. Apollo, I think you might actually like it. It's interesting because it is, from the late 80s, and yeah, it's just like weird cyberpunk, with completely drug-addled detectives. It's set in the somewhere in North Africa. It plays around with Islam in that context. It's really good. Well, he doesn't have remade. He does have automatons, though. I mean, he has golems. I think it kind of depends, though. I mean, Tchaikovsky has written so many stories about so many things that some of them are definitely about hexapods and octopods and so forth, and others are, I think, more about humans and stuff. Oh, the power of the wrench, I guess. um, yeah. Yeah, I think like Jason might be one of the few people who really, really hated the Devils. I don't know. I obviously did not apply for an arc because I never do. I know everyone else has read it and has an arc, and everyone is already talking about the Devils. I feel like by the time it actually comes out, there will be nothing on BookTube about it because all the BookTubers have already talked about it. Which, sure, why not? I still have like not exactly a long list of stuff that I wanna like that's coming out this year that I want to read. Like I was on the fence for Once Was Willem for a long time. I'm glad I decided for it because it was really fun. And yeah, the Buffalo Hunter might be something that I could also very much get into. But beyond that, obviously there's a new Guy Gavriel K coming out in May, but April I have nothing on the list. And The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno Garcia is coming out in maybe July, maybe August, one of those. That one I'm looking forward to. That could be fun. I know a lot of people are doing that already. I haven't necessarily checked what Rabin has been doing recently. He's posting so many that I kind of don't pay attention at the moment. Like I sometimes look at his channel, but like I get like notifications when he shares it on say the Fireside or some other Discord. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna look that up later. No, no, Kadia. The Devils is not in the same universe. It's a fully new universe, and it's apparently sort of like medieval fantasy Suicide Squad, as far as I can tell. Like it's lots of bad guys working for the sort of pseudo Vatican hunting werewolves, maybe something like that. Could be fun. Could also be just like very very same old. Because even though he may switch the setting, I'm not sure if Abercrombie is capable of switching tone. Oh, When We Were Real, I heard about that one, and I thought it sounded. Um, how can I say this? I saw the title and it came up in I think in SFF 180's sci-fi books for the year kind of thing, and it's like it's called When We Were Real, and it's about virtual reality and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, this sounds incredibly surface level stupid, which is probably isn't, but the title with combined with the theme is more like, you know what I mean? It sounds shallow. It doesn't have to be. It's just like the combination. I mean, hopefully it's really good, right? Maybe it's that also maybe it's also just that at this point there's a certain level of like Abercrombie fatigue because I've read 6 Abercrombie books. I kinda know how Abercrombie operates at this point. I kinda know what we'll get. We'll get some bit of shock, then we'll get, like, some battles that are incredibly inept, where everyone is constantly sliding on mud and falling on their face and getting accidentally killed. Then we get at least one incredibly awkward sex scene that it's all about, like, how no one actually knows how to act, that it's all about the awkwardness of sex, and then we'll get like a twist ending where everyone fails and all the good guys get murdered and the bad guys also get murdered, and maybe one or two people walk off and go like, well, I guess we start all over again. Oh, right. The Moon Hits Your Eyes is coming out relatively soon. I saw that. Or is it already out, or is it next week or something? Well, Bex, good luck with the migraine. Get better soon. Get well soon. I hope it passes you by. Oh, that's half a king, half a something, and half a war, right? That's the YA series. I haven't read those. Well, Chantel, there's a lot of books you can you can try to play to read and play to, I guess. Nah, but seriously, as I said earlier during the stream, if you have never read some Audre Lorde, read some Audre Lorde. Highly recommend reading some angry black feminism from the 70s. You know, does you good from time to time. Also, makes you angry, which is kind of the point. Oh, nice. 25th. So in 2 weeks. 1.5 weeks, I guess. Well, I hope the book club appreciates it. Oh, right. Speaking of book clubs, I have to reread The Worm of Roboros because my book club has finally settled on a date to meet and talk about it, which is on Thursday. So I guess by Thursday, I'd better have refreshed my memory of The Worm of Roboros, which is an interesting book if you have never read it. I'm very much looking forward to finding out what the others think about it. Yeah, yeah, Chantal. Like, and seriously, like, Lord is one of those incredibly powerful writers. Very angry, very. She's the one with the master's tools. Cannot dismantle the master's house. That kind of stuff. Really good. So it's also very much sort of like on the very intersectional about sort of like how racism and sexism and homophobia intersect and how you kind of need to be aware of that. It does. It does. It did inspire Tolkien, maybe slightly. At least Tolkien was very appreciative of it. I know that. So, Tolkien and the other Inklings were trying to invite Edison to like a meeting to come over and hang out with them and talk with them about fantasy because they were inviting different authors. They also tried to invite Mervyn Peake, but that kind of fell through because Peake was obviously not well health wise, and it was also like wartime and stuff. Hey Alicia, how are you doing? I saw you did your weekly update last night when it was like, I don't know, 3 a.m. or something for me, and I missed it. Maybe it was 1 a.m. Certainly in the middle of the night. So I have not found out what you have been reading. What are you reading at the moment? Yeah, I mean that kind of happens with like library books. I hope you get to it at some point, Chantal, because I think it's a really, really good book, and I think you might enjoy it. Okay. Wizards versus Lesbians has a Moby Dick episode. Where are they getting the lesbians from? Like, there's gay elements in it for sure, but I mean, it's been a while since I read it, but I don't think it has like. Does it have like any women characters at all? Maybe. I mean, it's super fucking huge, so maybe. No, with the wizards, possibly yes. Maybe the whale is an honorary lesbian. Maybe, maybe. Well, I mean, I'll check it out for sure because that should be fun. I, but I've read Moby Dick and I think it's a really really good book. I know it's an old book. It's a bit of a classic. It can also be obnoxiously, pretentiously smart in some ways and just obnoxious in some other ways. But I did really enjoy it. It reminded me a bit of sort of like the same kind of things Berlin Alexanderplatz did for like a German modernist novel with experimenting with form and stuff like that. But fun book. Yeah, no. As I said, like there's a lot of gay stuff in Moby Dick is astonishingly open when it comes to like the homoerotic stuff. I mean, on the other hand, it's about mariners on a boat, and Melville worked on boats himself. I'm pretty sure he knew all about that. Well, yeah, yeah. Someone had to say that biggest, and I'm glad it was you. And I'm pretty sure, yes, it does. Also true. Yeah, Chantal, I can see that. I did read it. I was studying computer science at the time, so maybe the wrong book. Well, right now. I'm just mostly thrilled to find out how far you can actually push that specific metaphor, Ori and biggest. But yeah, in general, good book, Moby Dick. I do also think that Bartleby is a really good book. I did really enjoy Bartleby, although I prefer not to. Yeah, I can see how. Yeah, it's fascinating when you're a kid, but it's not a book for teenagers. I'm pretty sure that's that can be understood. Yeah. Well, Moby Dick is basically whale good, boat bad. That's the summary. Um, there's some nuance, but basically that's what it boils down to. Boat bad, whale good. Although I was very happy to get my when I saw the German doom band Ahab to get their "All Harpooneers are Bastards" T-shirt, because that's the kind of you know policy I can stand behind. Oh, what is your most anticipated book of the year, Alicia? And also, I have not heard Zizek talk about Bartleby, but it must be absolutely fascinating. Well, the best one is obviously the whalers on the moon in the Futurama episode. Yeah. Now we're talking. Much better than the first one. See, the thing with Moby Dick also is that you can tell the story fairly straightforward in like a cinematic adaptation. Um, but what the book does is very much play around with form. So you have like one chapter about like the basics of whaling that is basically written like an encyclopedia entry, and then you have one part that is written as in a dramatic style with stage directions and roles and stuff, and so it does do all kinds of stuff like that. That is kind of difficult to pull off in a cinematic form, because you have like images and camera, and you can't just suddenly. I mean, I guess you can find ways of doing that, but you have to become like more experimental than the kind of budget that you need to have like a movie about a whale. You know, can do. Wait. McCarthy loved Moby Dick. Moby Dick has like 10 times, 100 times. Like, how can you love a book with so much punctuation and then be McCarthy? That doesn't work. Okay. I have no idea what Folio Society books normally cost, so I don't know what that one will cost. Also, although I think like Folio is not too expensive, right, compared to some other of the deluxe sort of like publishers. Yeah, we're getting way up like into regression there, Ori. Ah, now Britain is actually paying attention if you mention a folio edition of Padilla Street Station. Yeah, no, obviously later this year there's a couple of interesting books coming out. There's of course No Life Forsaken. There is technically, and I'm still not sure what I will do about it. The No Man's Land by Richard K. Morgan, but I'm gonna figure out what I do about that when we get there. That's still like half the price, or maybe a quarter the price, or like a third the price of like what a subterranean a subpress would cost these days, I guess. Plus, of course, shipping from Folio shipping from the UK, so I guess the shipping can probably fuck you up. Don't you have to be like part of like the broken binding kind of list to even be considered to get one? Isn't there like something going on similar to like Subterranean, where you sort of like have to be part of it to have like dibs on the next one, kind of thing? Um, yeah, Jeroen, it comes out in October, November, I think. I've heard about it like a long time ago when I read like a blog post by Richard K. Morgan's, I think, where he talked about like that he had that image of like a World War II veteran standing in like a fairy forest, and then he tried to write the story in something else, and then he couldn't focus, and then he put it aside. So I know he's been working on that one for a long time. But what with him becoming very turf and all of that, I'm not sure I want to give the motherfucker money, right? You know what I mean? So I guess I will have to do some research on where he's standing these days before I spend money on someone like Richard K. Morgan again. Much less talk about it afterwards, like, you know. No. Also, No Man's Land is a standalone about a World War II veteran that is bringing back children that have been kidnapped by fairies in 1950s England. Which, you know, could be really good. It could be really good, but also could get a very homophobic, transphobic, queerphobic, whatever subtext. What with, you know, fairies and taking away children and stuff. Okay, that's interesting news. Ori, I'll have a look on about that one. There is a Harmattan season, or however you pronounce that, and once again, I'm not good with names like Tochi Onyebuchi, whatever. That African author whose name I can't pronounce, much less with my fucking temporal tooth thing in there, which makes speaking even harder than usual. That's coming out in end of May, and it sounds cool because it sounds like noir, hard-boiled detective, sci-fi, hard-boiled in Africa, in West Africa, from what I remember. It might have been Cote d'Ivoire, but I forgot the exact location because it's been like months since I read the description. Honey Eater. Oh, right. I read that name like yesterday somewhere. The conspiracy, not conspiracy, censorship, non academic one that she's been working on, Britain. Are you talking about that one? Because I know she was working on an academic book on the history of censorship, and she was writing essays on that like last year. So I assume that's the one you're talking about. But she's also handed in her historical Viking fiction a couple of weeks ago, so it's at the editors, but you know, no actual like date confirmed yet. Same for the new Cameron Hurley, which is also apparently at the editors, but not no publication date yet. I still have to read her Ada Palmer's academic book on Lucretius, though. So yeah, I know there's stuff on the novel, on the Ada Palmer novel. I've seen I've seen some of them, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna read any of that because why would I read all the hype? I'm gonna read the book whenever it comes out, no questions asked. So okay, that one. Okay. Well, Chantel, good luck with that. I still have to wait for the to get the implant set in, well, sometime in June, I guess, and then another 3 months or whatever before they actually attach the tooth. What can you do? And I really hate having in this like fucking implant, not implant thing. It's like temporary thing. It's annoying as fuck. So yeah, inventing the Renaissance. Yeah, I don't know. I wanted to read her book on Lucretius because I've been, obviously the Lucretius one is also interesting because it's also about the Renaissance rediscovery of Rara Naturae by Lucretius. There's another one that won like not a maybe a Pulitzer, one of those prizes from a couple of years back, and I remember reading that one. And it was fun, but not too deep. Yeah, no, it's waiting is all I can do, but I'm not good at waiting. I'm surprisingly not a very patient person, to put it mildly. But speaking of Ada Palmer, I still want to go back and do like a reread of Terra Ignota and actually make videos on it. Um, it's one of the things I've been thinking about and so forth because ever since I read it last year, I'm like, yeah, this is something I should do. But there is still the Sanderstorm to be taken care of, and then we can look at like other projects. Don't want to promise even more like complex stuff and then not actually deliver on it because I'm good at that as well. Well, I have obviously not read Primordial in that case, but yeah, well, first dog in space. Probably also dog in space that stayed up there the longest. Interesting also that you're saying that because it feels like I'm sounding worse, but that's because I have the headphones in and I basically hear how I sound in my head and not how I sound to anyone else. So, and I still struggle with talking. I'm constantly tempted to just take it out again because it's so uncomfortable. Yeah, it's very depressing, Ori. On the other hand, did the US actually give the different apes they sent up to space? Did they even have names? I don't know if I want to read Forrest Gump. It doesn't sound like I mean, I watched the movie once and I didn't like it, so don't think it's my kind of book in general. Oh, I've seen the very, very first Planet of the Apes, and that one really cool. Also, one of the bands I did see in Athens was once again the amazing, the Lord Weird Slowfag, which is a band named after a druid from the Slain comics from 2000 AD, and one of the nerdiest bands out there with having an entire concept album about the Travelers sci-fi role-playing game, which has wolves in space, among other things. They also have a concept, not a concept album, but a couple of songs about Planet of the Apes Part 2, because why do Part 1, right? Which is the album called Ape Uprising, which, really good album. They also have like some songs about Gully Foyle, that being the hero of The Stars My Destination, and a recent album called Novum Organon, which is New Organon, which is obviously about philosophy, including Novum Organon by Francis Bacon, but also a song called The Apology, which is obviously by Plato's Apology of Socrates. And well, also they have a song called Bertrand Russell's Sex Den, which is a thing. Look it up. I mean, don't unless you want to learn more about Bertrand Russell's sex habits. He's not a chimp, though. He's an orangutan, Britain. But the librarian is awesome. Also, did you know that some nerds did in fact create a programming language based on the librarian from Discworld, which is called Ook, and all its different like terms are all different versions of Ook. It's basically it's a variant of brainfuck, and they just like replaced the plus and minus and stuff from brainfuck with different ooks. But it's Turing complete, so you can program stuff in Ook if you're like really really want to torture yourself. That does not, as far as I remember, happen in the Forrest Gump movie, Daniel. See, Chantel, we did it like we're in my old flat with my old flatmate and my partner at the time. Although we only got through like 3 of the Planet of the Apes movies, because at that point we were so brain fried that we're like, nah, fuck it, we're not gonna do more of them. Why would you want to start speaking English if orangutan is so very, very versatile as a language? Which is why he's working on a human orangutan dictionary at some point. But yeah, the librarian is amazing. He actually shows up for the first time in Discworld Book 2, The Light Fantastic. At the beginning of The Light Fantastic is when the librarian shows up for the first time, by which I mean literally shows up for the first time. Good luck with the dishes, Apollo. See, that's one of the things that are interesting with the orangutan, with the librarian in Discworld Britain, is that after a while, most people understand the librarian, even though he just says "ook," and that's that. There's like this wonderful situation, like in one of the Discworld books, where I think Rincewind is. It's like, so where do you keep your money? And he answers like "ook." And yeah, the same thing as like at the end of God is God. So like, is it better being an ape? Ook. It's like, yeah, that's the answer. Now with Planet of the Apes, also it's a bit difficult because so you have that old series from like the 70s with the first one being the one with Charlton Heston and all of that, and then they kind of rebooted it with a Tim Burton one. I think the first one that must have been like 99 or 2000 ish, and then they did a couple later ones again. So there's basically like two series of Planet of the Apes movies, and how many you have altogether, I wouldn't know. Yeah, that's the third one, I think. Also, that's from the old series. That's the third one. That one is really, really bad. Well, Chantel, don't you mean like epic? That's true. No, it's not exactly. It's not exactly clever or anything. It's more that like Pratchett kind of is someone who is not averse to making like a really stupid and obvious joke when he gets the chance to, which I respect. Um, oh God, I pressed the button and now I can hear my screen reader anymore. Let me. I have unmuted myself. That's good. Yeah, that's the old one. I want like three of those, or maybe four. The second one is the one where they have the massive bomb underground. That's the second one, I think. Um, the third one, I think, is the one with when the chimp couple travels back in time. After that, yeah, you know, they're not exactly, there's Dirty Harry jokes in there, Britain, and there is in fact um, a Casablanca joke at the end as well. I'm sure you noticed. Look, it's like with the Book of Mormon. The book is better than the musical, or is it the other way around? But yeah, Planet of the Apes, weird thing. Although, I mean, to be fair, the first one, I kind of, you know, the first one's not bad, and I think that the Tim Burton one is basically more or less a remake of the first one, just like with modern technology and everything. Yeah, I can imagine that. Like, if you watch all of them in like one go, in a large group with large amounts of beer, the result may be a somewhat how can I say this psychedelic, or at least not lead to like a very coherent memory of very specific details. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Also, I've only seen like trailers for the new ones. I've seen the Tim Burton one, that first one from like 2000 ish. But I've not seen any of the others because yeah, at some point I don't know. I've heard the new ones were pretty solid for taking that concept, but playing it straight, not getting too silly, and just looking at that. And also, obviously, I guess they have like some better looking special effects and stuff, and action scenes, and And no, I haven't read the book. Maybe I should at some point. Although I just did just get or see or download and whatnot on Audible a 17 hours Lord Saini short story collection edited by St. Joshi. So that's something that's going to happen in the next couple of days for me, or at least parts of it. I mean, the good part about it, these short story collections is that you can always, slip in one or two short stories about elves and stuff, and then go back and read something angry about politics and go back to like fairyland for a minute. I suspect also that that was not completely without, not completely randomly. Yeah, those sort of like similarities, I guess. Look, I don't necessarily agree with St. Joshi, but he's a good editor when it comes to these kind of stories. So I'll take his. Also, look, it's the most complete Dunsany audio collection they have on Audible, so that's the one I'm taking, and it's free, so I'm taking it even more. But Ori, I've heard those old ones are actually really great. Oh my. Yeah. So yeah, speaking of about other books that are coming out this year, as I said, like The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno Garcia sounds like something I want to read. A Harmattan season, hard-boiled, slightly sci-fi detective story in West Africa sounds like something that might be very interesting. Are you warming up for St. Patrick's Day over there, biggest? Oh my. Um, yeah, so I'm definitely gonna read that because witchcraft in Salem style witchcraft in like an East Coast elite college. So it's basically the secret history meets Salem witch trials. Sounds like something I might enjoy. Ah, so you're actually having a day of mourning to get tomorrow, biggest. My plan is to go back to. By the way, is to go back to the Mormonism video from tomorrow or maybe Tuesday onwards, because I feel like it's not going to get any better. And last week's Athenian sort of scar is sufficiently reduced to not distract too much from like the actual sort of like content. So I figured I'm gonna do it and try to record the whole fucking thing in 1 week, and we'll see how that goes. Because I want to move on and talk about other things, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. Also, this sounds wrong, and that's not because of her being Korean Nepalese, but because of like the bar being German Scandinavian. What's your current audiobook, Chantel? I don't think you said. I feel like tap dancing on top of a table. I want to check the quality of the table before I do that, which probably says more about the kind of bar I go to, because those tables, no way. That's kind of the problem, is that we don't have like a bar that actually. We used to have like a proper Irish pub in this town here, run by like an Irish dude, and that has been closed for years now. So there's like nothing appropriate, and I don't need to have like a bunch of like frat boy dudes getting drunk and pretending that because it's St. Patrick's Day, they are now allowed to sexually harass anyone that comes close to them. That's not something I need to witness. So I'm gonna stay away. Oh, that's the show. Oh, I thought you had already finished the Tchaikovsky one. Somehow I thought you were already done with that. But yeah, okay. Boring, you said. I've heard people say good things about it, but then, I've heard people say good things about just about every book, with the possible exception of Wizard's First Rule. And that's mostly because I don't watch iWizard's videos. I'm sure he loves it. They love it? I don't know. But if you have like three Ayn Rand books in your bookshelf tour, and Thomas Sowell's book as the one book about economics that you ever need to read, then I'm sure you might even love Wizard's First Rule. Yeah, yeah, I totally get that. And you should tell that's one of the things that is so interesting in Death of the Author, because there's like one part where the main character, because they start sort of like having like a Venmo style kind of not Waymo, the like self-driving cabs kind of service in because it's like near future. And they run vans, and she's like, yeah, finally I can go wherever I want because I can just like, order a van that is like wheelchair friendly, and I can just like go in there and it'll take me anywhere. So it talks about that being, actually a huge, boost to like agency and autonomy in lots of ways. See, Chantal, but should St. Patrick's Day actually be safe? I mean, safe in that regard, like obviously. Okay, yeah, that's an important kind of additional information, a bit of information there also. That is an important piece of information. And that's like an interesting thing though, like having, bars, having like a bar, a band and like tap dancing performance with kids. On the one hand, I'm like, hey, that's pretty neat. On the other hand, it's like it's very much sort of like commodifying a specific sort of like image of Ireland that has like I suspect very little to do with like actual Ireland. Especially on the other hand, if it's a bar full of Scandinavians and Germans, I guess you have something green there, and they'll go like, "Wow, a color we've never seen. What with all the rain and fog, this must be Ireland." Let Lindisfarne the place. And see, that's like an interesting thing because, like, I feel like American frats are very different from like student fraternities in Germany, and German ones are probably worse. I mean, yours are just like sexist dickheads getting drunk. Ours are sexist, racist dickheads getting drunk. Yeah, right, right, Chantal. That sounds awesome. Yeah, I mean, if they can get away from like the meat from the meat plant, I guess they're also allowed into bars at this point. I think officially in Germany it's like 16 if you're on your own in a bar, but very few people check IDs or anything. So you know, so if you grew up there also, were you also working there? So was that also child labor? Uh, I was surprised too because like I always feel like that U.S. bar and drinking culture is so uptight, I guess. But I was surprised. But I guess for like a performance and stuff, was going to say something, and then my brain kind of fried for a moment. I'm like, something something book, and then I forgot, which is normal and fine, I guess. Um, but yeah, yeah. See, also the problem with like German frats is that German student fraternities were sort of a big deal in the early 19th century, like the Romantics era, and were very closely sort of like linked to the 1848 sort of like revolution, and have always since then been like very sort of like about Germany as a German thing, and that kind of put them more and more into like very nationalistic kind of direction, which worked great in the 1930s, yeah, as you can imagine, and 40s, and they have never fully changed. Like basically, a lot of them have like you can only join if you're actually German because they are very because of that historical thing, which is obviously now mostly about being literal Nazis, and you have a lot of them that have like direct connections to the AfD and the Junge Alternative, which is the youth arm of the AfD, and even before that to like the NPD, which is the hardcore like neo-Nazi party that was slightly bigger before the AfD showed up, which is the Nationalist Party of Germany, and which are straight up neo-Nazis, right? A lot of them have like connections to that, and last year. In summer, October, there was like a big protest here in the city where I live because one of those fraternities invited Martin Sellner, head of Identity Europe, for a lecture to their place. And then we obviously blocked the entire street so he couldn't get there. And at the end, he had to go to like a small village outside of Marburg and give his reading in a cellar under a kebab place, which I'm sure made him very, very happy. Hey, Alicia, welcome back. So yeah, that's the problem with like German fraternities is that they're directly linked to hardcore nationalism with all the racism part. Like as I said, like some of them you can only join if you are like not only have like a German passport, but like also have like German parents and no migrant background at all, and they do like torch marches, the whole fucking they're Nazis is what I'm saying. Which is why most of them are either studying law or economics and nothing else. And yeah, they should all be wiped from the face of the earth, and their wonderful big frat houses should just like be reappropriated and turned into affordable student housing, for example. Hey Kale, good morning. How's Monday? Well, at least, yeah, we went all over the place, but we were talking about different bars and St. Patrick's Days, and also fraternities for some reason. Um, and why German fraternities are, in fact, frats are actually worse than American frats for historical reasons. So I think the takeaway there is like if you hear a German, not me, talk about frats and how they are all full of Nazis, it's a very specific German context. Not that there's no Nazis in American frats. I'm sure that you find some, but it's a different context. It has a very different, like for example, like a lot of like German student like fraternities have do like fencing, and you have like the what we call schlagende Verbindung, which is a striking, I guess, fraternity, which means that as part of that sort of like fencing tradition, which is still back from like the 1848 sort of like thing, right? You have like the fencing lessons, and what you need to actually remain in that fraternity, you need to have like a fencing duel, and you need to have at least one scar in your face that has like a specific technical term, which is Schmidt. And you need to have like at least one scar in your face from fencing to prove that you're like man enough. It's absolute fucked up bullshit, is what I'm saying. You got to work, I guess, in a couple of hours, Kale, right? Um, I was just looking at that biggest and going like, St. Patty's Day sounds like the international burger holiday. Um, yeah, well, no, we're not yet back to like full fascism. I think we're gonna skirt that one for like another 3 or 4 years. Your country, on the other hand, I don't know. But yeah, how much time do you have before you have to go to work, Kale? Just out of curiosity. Oh, it's not my plan. Also, it's very much a plan of all the like leftist groups in the local student council, to put it mildly. And one of the fun things is like because it's all of that like historical like tradition stuff tied into that. Like on the 1st of May, they used to have like an open sort of like beer drinking thing that the fraternities on the market square, and usually all the leftists showed up to throw stuff at the frat people, and all of that. And at some point, it got banned because it always devolved into like a riot. But there's a punk, full on like punk party in Germany, the APPD, the anarchist pogo punk party of Germany, and they 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 actually started their own fraternity, their own frat, like a punk frat, and as a registered frat, they had the right to actually show up and be part of this like whole frat event, historical frat event. So we have like all these like uptight people with their scars and being like very traditional and all nuts, and then you have like 10 punks just like sitting there and drinking cheapest beer and being incredibly obnoxious. They're like, no, we got a right to be here. We are like a registered frat, which is the kind of resistance I think works really well, because it's full on trolling, and there's like nothing they can do about it, because otherwise they will have to change their rules, and then they'll probably get like every right to actually show up and be there and be annoying, sort of like revoked, which ended up is exactly what happened at the end. No, no. Also, the face scar thing is very much is still very much a thing. It's not all frats. A lot of them have sort of slowly moved on. Some of them do, in fact, uh, allow. non-Aryan members. There was a huge scandal about that like a couple of years ago because one of those fraternities um, accepted a member who was German because like he was adopted by German parents as a baby basically from somewhere from East Asia. Might have been China, might have been somewhere else. I don't know exactly. And they accepted him, and then that entire fraternity was kicked out of the sort of like larger sort of like federation of fraternities for having broken the rules of only accepting like Germans. And then they really needed to work hard to define what they mean by German without saying Aria, because of course you don't want to say Aryan, and it kind of didn't work. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, no, the scarring thing is still happening. It's obviously like massively sort of like ritualized now. So you have the duel, they are fighting until you get like your cut. They have like a doctor standing by and everything to make sure that everything's fine. And but you have to put specific stuff in because you want the scar to stay in your face. So you need to make sure it doesn't heal properly, but it doesn't hurt. So you anesthetize it, and then yeah, it's a whole thing. So if you see and that's something you can pay attention to. If you see German politicians somewhere and they have an obvious face scar somewhere, you know that they have been in one of those fraternities because those frats obviously are a way, the same way they are in American universities. They are a way of networking, and if you are willing to do all of that crap, right, that can be a leg up into stuff. And since a lot of them are at the end of the day studying law or economics, a lot of them end up in politics. So if you see German politicians walk around with an obvious scar that looks like a cut somewhere in their face, yeah, that's where they got it from. It's probably a very, very conservative, not to say very racist, student fraternity. Not saying you should, dismiss them just because of that, but interesting thing to keep in mind, right? So yeah, German fraternities, big fucking mess, and and yeah, a lot of these networks are still very much sort of like in place. In fact, my father was part of like one of those fraternities, but not one of those that have like scars, but like a different one. Hey da, how you doing over there in the wonderful lands of Britannia, which I've heard used to rule the waves for some time. You've missed a long conversation about the friability of different mammals, including apes and whales. And by whales, we mean the mammals, not the country, I assume. So yeah, well, I was shocked, right? And that's something I found really fascinating over the last sort of like week, like weeks, because I was reading some German news, and like German news are not very good. Um, and that like German understanding of U.S. politics and U.S. society in particular is still very much lagging behind, which is a general German thing, I guess. But I said like I was visiting my mother, and I obviously had some conversations about politics with her because happens, and her understanding of politics is very much sort of like built through legacy media, through like German legacy media, like the newspaper she reads every day, and the official, like not official, but the daily like 15 minutes news show that the biggest sort of like publicly funded TV station has at like 8 in the evening, and no ruling any waves anymore. Well, what can you do? I did some Greek living last week, Kale. I'm pretty sure that's not what US TV stations were talking about, though. But yeah, so it's just like interesting the way Germany in particular has like a very weird sort of like relationship to the US and US politics, and how things are seen here. And then I tried to find out the amazing question of like how much are eggs in Germany, and you wouldn't believe it's very cheap. But trying to explain to my mother sort of like why stuff is the way it is in the US, or like why stuff might be the way it is in the US, and where stuff historically comes from. It's like I didn't know any of this. It's like yeah, because German media kind of sucks when it comes to that. It's also still very much way too kind to 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 Trump and to Putin, to be clear. And to a lot of this stuff. But what I found fascinating was my mother was in the hospital last week, not 2 weeks, 1.5 weeks ago. She's fine, all's good, but like she was in the hospital, and there was like a TV set in her hospital room, and so she was watching the news because like her room, like the other person in the room had like the TV control, and they had to control it. So she was watching the TV, but it was muted, so she didn't know what's going on, or couldn't hear what was said. But she sort of like saw the TV replay of the whole like Trump, Zelensky, Vance thing, and she was like, "I saw Vance, and I didn't hear anything he said." Like, what a fucking asshole! Just by looking at him and his body language, what a fucking asshole! I have no idea what he said, but that guy sucks. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. Just found it very interesting because then I had to explain to her who Vance is, and why he actually sucks. But she's like, no, I just saw his face, and he has a hateable face. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to turn this into like a politics conversation at all. I just found it really funny to have my mother, who's not exactly a radical leftist by any stretch of the imagination, go like, well, I saw this guy, I didn't even hear his voice, but man, he sucks. I'm like, yeah, yeah, good judge of character there, I guess. Um, but yeah, that's like part of like what I was reading last week. I also reread what's his face, Richard Hofstadter's anti-intellectualism in American life, which is from like 1961 too, I think. Because he talks about Kennedy, but he does not talk about the Kennedy assassination. So it must have been published somewhere between 60 and 63. And it's an interesting book. In some regards, it's very good. I think it showcases a lot of interesting things about intellectualism and so forth. In some regards, it's also very weird, because he's like a a very sort of like old school style liberal and believes in like the good of humanity and that everything will actually work out and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, man. And one really fun thing is that he obviously talks about the Scopes trial in the 20s about trying to keep the teaching of evolution out of like school books and stuff. And it obviously kind of um, at the time obviously went pro evolution and against just teaching Christian creationism, basically. Well, not creationism, but Christian creation. And you read that book in like 1961. He's like, well, nowadays no one is afraid that that evolution will be banned from school books anymore because people have fully accepted this, accepted evolutionary theory. And like, oh boy, that one has not aged well, motherfucker. Good thing you died. Um, I don't know if there's a specific word for a face that deserves a fist. The closest I can imagine right now is the word Hackfresse, uh, which basically it means that, although hack or hacken means to chop, so it's more like a face that deserves an axe, I guess, or a hatchet. Which oh shit, right? You have to cross the border to get your teeth. I just forgot for a second there, man. Yeah, it's fucked up. It is absolutely fucked up, and the way it is moving so fast, and the way it just like yeah, it is very much like a form of not psychological, spiritual warfare, which is bad. Uh, on the other hand, I think at least Europe for once is actually doing its job mostly and trying to get its shit together and not not bowing under, and even fucking dickheads like Viktor Orban and Vucic over in Serbia are getting sort of like some backlash. So yeah, I can imagine, Daniel. I can imagine it's like not easy. And I'm very I'm obviously I'm glad I'm not there, but and like I think like one of the things we've seen, and that's the frustrating part, is that because of the way we've had like our global system is set up, it's like we have large parts of the world that have had like no influence on that election, but we all like everyone is suffering from those people. And then you go and watch everyone's favorite Palestinian Chuck Schumer going like, well, here, Trump, have everything because resistance, I've heard, is futile. It's not fun. Well, the Greek life also it basically means lots of food and lots of tsiporo and excellent retsina and not much else. Wait a second. I think I just missed some messages there, Daniel. Let me check this chat thing. Wait. Oh yeah, that one. Wait, Voice of America was. How did that happen? Did they, in fact, refrain from calling it the Gulf of America, or what did they do to be? I mean, or did they dare to say we have to transition from this one program to the next one, and then they were automatically anti-trans, and that was that. 700 miles, which just goes to show how fucking large California is, I guess. I just saw that like they apparently ICE just took in another German citizen with a green card. So yeah, chances of Germans coming to the US have been reduced somewhat, I guess. There might, I mean, there was already like a travel warning for trans and non-binary people for the US from the German uh, uh, what's it called? Auswärtige Amt, the Foreign Department. I'm pretty sure that will be ramped up to just about everyone going like, don't travel to the US, which, okay. Like the main thing I was wondering, like with all of this, like how long is this sort of like approach to quote unquote politics actually sustainable before something blows up that is actually something blows up so hard that stuff happens in some way that is not happening just in parliament or not just in Congress or whatever. It's like how long can you keep this bullshit up? Also, how's Trump holding any like more functions now that he has like 200% tariffs on champagne? See, that's the thing, Chantel's like if and in the last case I read about it this like a couple of hours ago. It's like a German father of a family with a green card and everything. It's like as Aryan and as nuclear family as it fucking gets, and you you put that kind of person into like ICE detention. It's like okay, yeah, works, I guess. It's gonna be interesting though, right? Right. Also, like, don't come here is, I get it, but like, how's it gonna work out for? Oh no, wait. Academic and scientific conferences, who cares? They're they're not gonna get funded anyway. So I guess all of them will move to like a different place now. because so much of those like big sort of like I know big trade conferences and stuff like that, right? Like the CES, Consumer Electronics Show, academic conferences, all that stuff is happening in the US. And if you're like this, I don't know if that's gonna work. Wasn't that was like something I was thinking about like earlier last week, where I was like, well, you kind of watch the news and like every day it's getting weirder and weirder and more insane. And you're like, how can I do like fantasy book conversations? How can I go like, well, here's a cozy fantasy that I really enjoyed, right? And in the background, the world is burning. I'm like, that feels wrong. On the other hand, do you want to go and just like talk about only like well grimdark stuff, and or should I just do like reviews for interesting, angry political books that everyone should read? Is that the way to go? Because I would, yeah, talking about the Lord of the Rings right now feels kind of weird and wrong. Yeah, yeah, Chantal, I think that sounds reasonable for your cat. Okay, obviously, I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff that has been sort of like built up over the last 70 years on the one hand when it comes to that, and then obviously you have like what's the alternative? Someone who goes like, well, we're basically like Trump, but we're nicer, but also we have like a woman, a black woman. So we're doing the racist stuff, but our main like front runner is what all the racists kind of hate. So how's it going to work? Like, the lack of an actual alternative, I think, is like a massive part of like why so much, and that's not just an American problem, right? Let's be clear. I think it's the same problem that we have like in German politics at the moment. It's like the three sort of like centrist parties, which is the Green Party, the Social Democrats, and Christian Democrats, which are sort of like center right, slightly moving to the right. Obviously, everyone is moving to the right. Social Democrats, which are center, not center left, because that's no longer left, and the Greens, who are sort of like, well, we're center, have given up all our left stuff, but let's be nice to the environment, maybe, unless we have to do like an economic stuff, because then that's obviously more important. There's like there's no alternatives except, of course, the actual Nazis who go like, well, we have solutions. We they may be final, but at least they're solutions. Everyone else is just like standing there going like, well, economy, something, something. And that's a huge problem. That I mean, it's the same thing in fucking like France in a way, right? Like you have like you have your Nazis, you have your center, whatever Macron pretends to be, and yeah, you had a strong like left party there, but once because of like how the French system is set up, because president does president stuff, he manages to sort of constantly sort of like push the left to the side, and thus once again, support the right in a lot of ways, and that's you went over to the UK, and it's like, what's someone vote going to vote for in the UK? You can vote for like the Tories, who have clearly failed in every possible way. You can vote for Keir Starmer, who's basically like the Tories but slightly more serious, or you can vote for whatever Nigel Farage is doing at the moment. There's no alternatives outside of the far right, basically, and the same old, basically. And since clearly the same old doesn't work for a lot of people, because a lot of, everyone's standards of living are going down. People are they have all kinds of anxieties about the future and so forth. And you have like the people that go like, let's do the same thing as always, and you have the other party that go like, well, let's be mean to everyone because even if we don't help you, at least you can, be mean to someone else, and then you end up in this weird situation that we all have ended up in. I think, I don't know, it's frustrating. There's a wonderful one of my favorite currently favorite German punk bands has this amazing a new song, and unfortunately it's all in German and it's hard to translate because all the really stupid rhymes don't work in English. But the song is called Arbeit Sie, Samba No. Arbeit obviously meaning work, and it's there used to be an incredibly racist German Schlager from the 70s, which was Arbeit No, Samba Si, which is all about, it's insanely racist. Don't ever, ever try to watch that. Don't ever try to even look at it. It's, it's a black German Schlager singer from the 70s. And it's a song about everyone, all the people coming home to, for whatever reason, the hacienda somewhere on the probably Argentina, where all the Nazis went. I don't know, and it's as racist as it gets. And they're all coming home because the weekend is now, and now there's no more work, and from here on out, it's going to be samba. And we don't wonder why there's haciendas in places where people dance samba. Don't ask. It's weird. And they switch it, and now it's Arbeit Sie, which is work yes, samba no, and it has some of the best lines because it's like I want to work until I die so I can pass on as much as possible to my kids, basically. And then it's straight from bed to the first Excel file, but it all rhymed in German. It's like a 1.5 minute like highly aggressive punk song, and it's yeah, when what you just said, like Demi Drek, is exactly that. um, it's a really funny song, but also incredibly depressing. But yeah, it's kind of where we end up when we do like neoliberalism for like 70 years, and then the neoliberalist capitalist elite kind of allies with the racist Christian right, and the so-called moderate centrists pretend that nothing happened, and we can still sort of have our World War II and shortly after World War II sort of like compromise, and just by keeping on doing that, nothing bad will ever happen. Hooray! All dished out, I guess, Apollo. How you doing? Yeah, right. So I assume, like for Chantal, you'd be is your disability connected to the VA, or because as a veteran, or how's it working for you? But yeah, I guess it's you're in a really fucked up state right now, like with like not knowing what's going to happen next. Like, yeah, like scary, is it? I don't know, Apollo. Like, it kind of depends. I feel like you need to do party politics sort of to keep the system running for now. At least for Germany. Like, obviously, it kind of depends on the country. For the US, Not right now, no. I don't think party politics works in the US right now. In Germany, I feel like I am slightly optimistic. What with the Linke, with the left party actually getting like their 8%, if they manage to actually rebuild during the next 4 years, become a more serious party than they were with Wagenknecht during the last couple, like, I don't know, 8, 10, whatever years. They might become like a serious sort of like coalition partner for like a SPD, like Social Democrats, leftists, Green thing in the future. But that's like very much sort of like something that's up in the air right now. It kind of depends on whether the old guys are willing to let go and sort of like give the new generation sort of like the room they need to sort of like actually establish themselves in all kinds of ways. And ask me in 2 years, I might have more confidence on that. I feel like Germany being the way that Germany is, I think we have to keep doing party politics for the time being, while obviously also building parallel structures for mutual aid and all of that stuff. But on the other hand, I feel like our party system, while being bad, is still somewhat more resilient than, say, a US system in a lot of ways. What with our sort of Supreme Court equivalent, Verfassungsgericht, the Constitutional Court, being fairly independent from politics and being willing to constantly block laws and stuff like that. I feel we have a bit more time to sort of like figure out what to do next, I guess. But that's like a German sort of like a German privilege in that regard. For the US, who knows? Ah, okay. So it's not VA related. That's well, that's not good though either, because of the world. That's still bad. Yeah, parallel structures are needed no matter what. Also, I think that's like the main lesson that everyone can learn right now is like build those parallel structures, because if you don't have them and shit goes down, you're fucked. And I assume there are some people in the US who have those parallel structures, but a lot of people don't. And yeah, everyone else should probably start building up those parallel structures as quickly as possible in as many ways as possible. And ideally, build them up both locally for like with your neighbors, do mutual aid on that regard, but like also build up parallel structures on like an international level. Have people in other countries that you can rely on, that can help you with information, with all kinds of stuff. Make sure you have yeah, yeah, you have people. Yeah, Paula, it's like, who knows? I feel like Germany is just, there's so much inertia in like German politics in particular, that stuff just takes so long that like, as much as I was like scared about like how high the percentage for the AfD will be in this election, I was fairly confident that like no matter what, they will not end up in actual like they will not end up in power, so to speak. And that's because Germany is slow, at least on like the federal level. And I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens in the next 4 years to see where stuff is going. But better be prepared. I think the other part, though, the other problem though is like on like a national level, or international level, like almost like on that large level, is how you're going to organize if not through party politics, right? I mean, it's a question of scalability, right? You can do all kinds of stuff on like a city level, town level, regional level, but once you reach like an, I don't know, even like a moderately small country like Germany with like 80 million people, there's organizing, like building some form of participatory structure is going to get really, really difficult. And I don't necessarily know what kind of what could work in that regard. And parties, I think, are just like a fairly easy way of doing that. I mean, we can all go back to like the Byzantine model and tie our parties to sports teams, but I'm not sure if that works much better. Um, I mean, looking back at the Byzantine Empire, I'm pretty sure it doesn't work better if you tie our politics to like sports teams. Yeah, exactly, Daniel. That's the problem with the U.S. party system, that there's like no viable third party. Although, like, I mean, I think it's like it's going to be interesting to see where stuff is heading there. And interesting is like the wrong word. It's just like I have the privilege of saying like it's interesting because I'm sitting out here, in my armchair and going like, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Um, while you guys are actively suffering. But if you have like the Democratic Party being the way the Democratic Party has been the last couple of days, with establishment people like Chuck Schumer and so forth, basically going along, I can see the Democratic Party sort of like splitting into a more populist, slightly more progressive sort of wing, and splitting that off. And right now, almost having enough sort of power to actually, gain enough of a toehold to, you know, actually get people back in during midterms. That is a possibility, I think, maybe. But it kind of depends on how stuff is happening, and what kind of stuff is happening in the next couple of months. Like, I mean, like if Trump decides to invade fucking Panama or Canada in the next month, I think a lot of these things are just like so much theorizing anyway. Yeah, yeah, that might work, Apollo. The klassische Räterepublik. I'm not exactly against that. The question is like, how scalable is that? Because I don't think anyone has ever tried it on that high of a scale, on that high of a number, like that large of a level. It would be an experiment, but it's probably the closest you can get. Yeah, yeah. You're not wrong, Chantal. There is certainly, well, the powers of raw capital are very much that, right? That's kind of the problem. Yeah, as I said, Daniel, I'm with you there. Yeah, the so-called working class. And I think there's an element with like the whole term working class that I sometimes struggle with, because, and that's something that Germany also has to, the German left also has to figure out, is the understanding that the working class is not what people constantly used to think of when they said working class, right? You go like, oh, the working class is, it's all those blue collar people standing at like conveyor belt, at an assembly line and doing like hard physical labor. That's your working class. But that's no longer the case. The working class right now is people doing gig work. It's people working at fucking Starbucks and fast food places. It's people driving Ubers. That's the working class right now. But because those people are not unionized and have like no are not, they're not necessarily considered to be working class. So you have like a lot of like conflicts, or like there is no such thing as a class consciousness there, because someone who works at some, someone who's an part of like the UAW, right? There's someone is unionized as one of the auto workers, and worked as like, I don't know, General Motors or whatever, right? They don't think of the Starbucks barista as working class. They probably think of them as an obnoxious blue hair, well, not blue hair, you know what I mean, Vogue kid that probably, and so forth. And you need to understand that that's your working class, because working class is not defined by the kind of job you do, it's defined by the kind of money you make or don't make. And the problem is that that means that we have to overcome about 200 years of sort of like ingrained identity of, or class identity, and we have to overcome that with all the dumb sort of like romantic tradition of, we're the working class, we're the people that are all covered in grace because we've been, creeping around in coal mines and then going back to our smelters and doing the ironwork, and then we go directly to the car factory and we hand assemble our fucking Model T on an assembly line, which makes no sense, but you know what I mean, right? You need to overcome that and understand that that's the kind of people, the people doing fucking crunch time at some gaming studio only to be kicked out before the project actually gets published. Those are working class people. All of those are the working class, and that sort of a class consciousness doesn't exist yet. Hey Ben, how you doing? Yeah, yeah, we did. Also, we did. That's like 150 years ago, almost. And we know, but I think that's like one of the big things that is not just in America, but like also in Germany at least. There's once again that whole problem that you have all of these sort of like that sort of like imagined competition between different low paid workers in different fields, going like, no, we're the real working class and we're not the working class, you're not the working class because you don't work physically, you do, which is incredibly frustrating. um, and unless we overcome sort of like those different forms of elitism and snobbery within the low paid, yeah, within the working class, nothing is possible in general, because like you know there's not enough fucking auto workers in the US to actually have any impact. Even if you ally with all the coal miners, it's still not enough. And there's no more unions of longshoremen that can like fucking block the entire fucking harbor, because we've all switched to container. It's not working unless you understand that everyone who's working in somewhat precarious situations, either in gig work or in low paid jobs, even the tech people, the programmers, none of those fuckers are unionized. Get all of them. Do understand that that's your basis. Anyone whose income is under, I don't know, whatever it is on your side, and that's where the real sort of like there's where that's where the front lines are. And beyond that, unless that kind of gets resolved, there's no way you can actually do anything class based anywhere. Well, Kale, you live in Australia, and none of your valleys have ever been green. That's just a fact of nature, which doesn't care about the feelings of nature, or so I've been told. Yeah, that's the problem. The Wobblies are sadly no longer what they were. I mean, no reason they couldn't be big again, but it takes a lot, because it's not so much about just the IWW doing their thing, because even for non-unionized people, there is that sort of like barrier in the head, right? It's it's that the term worker is so tied to, you know, manual physical labor in factories or whatever. It's so tied to like a 19th century concept, and it's like that. Yeah, most people working, even whether you, no matter what kind of union they're in, like people working at like at a car company don't think of yeah, as I said, don't think of the Starbucks barista as their as on their side in like the labor struggle, which is you know, how neoliberalism works, because everyone's like on their own in this individualist like competition. Yeah, yeah, Apollo, that's true. One of the fascinating things, though, I had that conversation with a friend who works at a large car manufacturer in Germany, right? And everyone at that car company is represented by the German metal workers. Doesn't matter whether they work in IT or anything else, which leads to interesting questions when it comes to like, how does striking work if you're a programmer in your home office? How do you go on strike? How do you guarantee that you're on strike and not just, you know, jerking off? Because striking is a political activity, and jerking off only if you are a unionized member of a religious order, I guess. But yeah, I think you're right also, and you're also right, Apollo. But beyond, you know, the different like union memberships or whatever, what you need to look at is in fact that barrier in the head, the understanding of what class means, and that like the working class is, and that's something that like, a lot of political parties, especially like in Europe, and you have like the left and social democrats and old school socialist parties where they're like, yeah, we're the party for the working class. And who do you mean by working class? Well, we coal miners and steel workers and factory workers. And so what about everyone else who doesn't get paid or anything? And it's like, well, are they workers though? They're in the service sector. And, well, you know, you you might have to, you know, adjust your thinking. It's no longer 1849. It's no longer 1850. We have found ways to replace children's fingers in all our massive looms. We're now using people from the Near East and Middle East for that, because refugees are cheaper than children, I guess. But well, that's the thing that in a lot of people's sort of like the sort of we have this sort of like in Europe in general, we have like very old-fashioned ideas of like who consi- who constitutes like the working class and who doesn't. And you know, there's like a lot of like not to drag Bourdieu into that, but to drag Bourdieu into that. There's a lot of like sort of like class distinctions going on there. And it's like, no, these people are you know, probably students doing student work, and so they're the elite, and we're out down here doing the labor work. It's like, oh, look, both of you make like $10 per hour. You're on the same fucking side. And you know, that's kind of where intersectionality obviously comes in, because it's also, you know, obviously a lot of like low paid work is still very much gendered and racialized in a lot of ways, and a lot of that stuff is also not considered part of the working class, and you need to sort of like change that. Night, you know, I don't know how to do that because I'm, you know, I'm not a labor organizer because I don't work. Die Metallzeitung. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And there's like no irony involved in that. But iron, I assume. But on the other hand, I live about an 1.5 hours away from where our upcoming soon-to-be Chancellor parks his private plane. So I can always go by and ask him a personal question, I guess, or at least just like take a dump in his plane. For context, soon-to-be German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has a pilot's license and is very fond of personally flying around with his private airplane. And yeah, he lives about 90 minutes by train from where I live. Oh yeah, and I know, Daniel. That's part of the problem. Is like you need to figure out how to sort of like form that without maybe using the word for now. It's like, no, we're against socialism, but we like healthcare for all, free healthcare. We like all of these other things that we think are great, which they are. But we're not dirty socialists. Well, you know, like I haven't bought eggs in a while, but I think like a dozen eggs is maybe $3, somewhere between 3 and 4, I think. See, one of the interesting things though when we're talking about schools was I was reading a book about the John Birch Society, and one of the things the John Birch Society did in the 50s and 60s was send its own people into school boards to then bully teachers out of school and make sure that certain books did not show up in school libraries and were not taught in school because they were containing dirty communist propaganda like sex education. And yeah, nothing has changed, has it? It's fun. The whole egg thing I find super fascinating because it's so weird. Because it's such a sort of like focus point now, and everyone's like, "Oh, the price of eggs is so high," and I never thought about it, and then I had people talking about like how they bought like a dozen eggs for like $8, $8 or something. And I'm like, well, that seems excessive. I don't buy eggs that much, but like I don't think that's right. And today I read that apparently the US has asked the Scandinavian Association of Poultry Farmers if they want to export more eggs to the US, which is like, so you want Denmark, who's currently in charge of Greenland, to sell you eggs while you want to take over Greenland, right? How have you thought about this one? But what is it? What is really Britain is is yeah, Greenland is mostly in charge of Greenland, but it's still under the nominal control of Denmark, though, right? Not that Greenland has that much surplus of eggs, I assume. But I'm not going to argue the deeper colonial history of Denmark and Greenland with you because I'm not an expert on that at all. Yeah, that sucks, Chantel. That's like weird though. It's like, well, we paid you a little. We'll just not give you any money. It's like, well, can't we negotiate some way where you, you know, get at least something because you got to live off something. I don't think the Greenland people want to join the US right now. I don't think anyone actually wants to join the US. I feel there's probably a lot of people who would like to leave the US right now. It's not like they're going to make it very easy. Uh, they're not making it very attractive to join the we're all winning kind of US though, right? Well, I mean, I hope Denmark would not object, but as I said, like I'm not full, not exactly an expert on like how the Denmark Greenland sort of like structure works these days. I know that that Greenland has like a lot of autonomy at this point. I just don't know how the legal structures are built. But yeah, like why would you want to join the US right now? It's gonna great. It's gonna be great. Suddenly you have to pay 200% more for your for your champagne. Not that Greenland is probably the number one importer of French champagne, but why would you? In general, Denmark and the European Union are definitely the better deal right now, in a lot of ways. But yeah. As said, I mean, you as someone from Denmark probably know more about this than I do. I know there's some pretty ugly colonial history between Denmark and Greenland that has maybe partly been resolved, but that's all I know. But yeah, not gonna litigate that. I just don't feel like any like. But see, that's kind of the other part, right? It's not like Trump went and got like, "Hey, people of Greenland, do you want to join us?" It was more like, "We need this place. Sell me this place, Denmark." Which at that point, if I were Greenland, I'd be pissed off, right? Because that's yeah, right, Ben. That's like the thing. I'll say this for Donald Trump. What Donald Trump managed is the impossible. He managed to unite all of like Canada with Quebec. He managed to unite most, like almost all of Europe in a lot of ways. It's like, wow. He should not. He should get the Nobel Peace Prize for uniting Canada and uniting the EU. He should not get the Nobel Peace Prize for whatever else he's trying. But that's some serious stuff he was pulling off there. You can totally circle back to the golden feathered chicken friend. Can you do that while I get myself another beer because I'm running out of beer, which is something that happens from time to time. So I'll get myself another beer, and you figure out the chicken stuff, right? So have fun talking about that. I'll be back in a minute with, I guess, another beer. All right, I've switched to pirate mode because my tooth thing was getting on my nerves. How are you guys doing? That's so fascinating, Ida. First of all, cheers. Jordbeer, because Jord means earth, and in German, strawberries are obviously Erdbeer, which also means earthberry and not strawberry. But obviously, if you have like a field of strawberries, you put like straw below because then the berries go to. Yeah, you get the drift. But it's interesting to see where the names, which from the sort of like same sort of like Germanic language at the end of the day, have different descriptions because of the farming tradition, I guess. I have not read Grant Morrison's Luda, um, Britain. I have read Luda though, which is a really good book. But you should read Gog Magog first, for reasons. Well, you need to have at least one called Henrietta. That makes a lot of sense. What with her being Henne and all of that. See, here's the thing: cows are nice. Calves are super cute, though. Um, well, that makes sense. Having Arthurian legends and drag queens in the same thing makes perfect sense to me. Could be. I'm not a strawberry expert. I eat them. That's about it. I am scared to read the answer of that question, Briggest. because I'm pretty sure you have a very specific answer that will be painful to read. And I suspect it has nothing to do with like farming techniques. Could be about the sex thing, Daniel. I'm not quite sure. To be fair, like wild strawberries are like a whole other thing, right? They're so different from like your field strawberries. But yeah, no, wild strawberries are amazing. Um, all I know about all I know about like plants and biology is at the end of the day is the bean thing. Wild strawberries are kind of weird, like hard to find though. In Germany, they're called like forest strawberries, like Walderdbeere, for some reason. Also, hi Liam, how you doing? um, yeah, I saw your comment under my video for the Wizard of Pigeons, and I watched your video, and I totally understand why you don't want to why why Robin Hobb or Megan Lindholm is sort of too slow, or just goes past you. I totally get it. For me, Wizard of the Pigeons worked really well, but for me, I think partly it was because I've read that whole like section uh, where Farrah Mandelson kind of dissects the thing in nuances. So I kind of knew what I was getting into, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Now I was about the talking about the Mendel thing with like when you come to inheritance and talk about like how you can combine the different beans and get like the different things that like everyone's favorite monk did in the 19th century. No, so the thing with the strawberries from like the agricultural level, I think biggest is that like if you have strawberries, right, and they start having the actual berries because they're so big and heavy, they kind of go down, fall down, or not fall down, but like bend the stalks down to the ground. So what you do is when you have a field of strawberries, you cover the ground under the strawberries. If you have like a full field, you cover that with straw, so the berries don't actually sort of like dip into the ground, which is what you normally have. They kind of dip into the ground and start like moldering into the ground, which is how the seeds get spread and everything. But you have like a layer of straw underneath the plants, so it ends up on the dry straw, and they don't. So you can actually pick them before they get covered in dirt and slowly sink into the ground, which is why in Germany you call them earthberry or groundberry, and in English you call them strawberry, because you probably got them like a couple of years later when when we had figured out that actually putting something underneath them makes sense. I think that's how it works. Isn't What a Movie Britain. Kind of confused there. Yeah, because I dropped out of biology class as soon as possible and just went to chemistry and physics instead. So I don't know much about it. It's about crossing different forms of beans and developing the idea of inheriting different traits, and that's what everyone's favorite monk Gregor Mendel figured out in his monastery garden in the mid 19th century, and he was using beans for that, and possibly after a while also the fruit flies, but first beans. Oh yeah, well, it's gods, Britain. No, no, no. The beans is beans were like one of the sort of like first times, sort of like, well, obviously before genetics, but the idea that you can how inheritance works and that you can cross one thing with another was sort of like systematically studied. Mendel came up with those sort of like if you cross. Look, it's high school stuff, and I dropped out of it because I was a punk and I was not exactly paying attention, and beer was more important, and no facts. So blame no facts for me not being able to explain Mendel's laws of inheritance, but he derived certain laws of like how you split this up between. It's the thing about like recessive and dominant traits is what came out of that whole bean thing that sort of like happened because he was breeding beans, and it's like, oh, so if this happens in this one, look look it up in a school book. Don't you have like, no, wait, oh no, hey Ben, you're not yet part of the United States, you're not the 55th wow, 51st state yet. You still have good biology school books. Look it up there, I guess. Look, what beans provide is well, mostly lots of hot air, because if you eat too much of them, they make you fart a lot. That's all I know about beans. Although I was just like, when I was in Athens, we had once again the like, if you ever go to Greece, like or if you have like a Greek place restaurant near you, ask if they have like, if they make like fava, because yeah, it's similar to hummus, but you use like the big white sort of like fava beans, and because they're Greek, they also put like raw onions and garlic into in it, and it's amazing. Gooseberries, I have no idea. Gooseberries in Germany are called Stachelbeere, which means spikeberry or bristleberry, depending on how you want to translate it. So there's no, I would not know where that comes from. Mendele. No, no, I'm not saying that. Yeah. No, beans are really, really good, right? I mean, beans also have like a lot of what's it called? Knowing words. Knowing words is difficult. One of those food groups, and I'm bad at it. Not carbs, the other one, but beans, and like beans and peas and chickpeas are really big into that. So like really healthy stuff in general, which is why I love like the Mediterranean diet is so healthy. So like, yeah, beans good. And like, yeah, I mean obviously. The interesting thing is more like how many different types of beans we have and how many different types of like bean foods you get, like depending on where in the world you are. Like for example, like Germany, you have like a lot of like the green, a lot of like green beans, like the long thin ones, and a lot of that stuff. Like a lot of times you eat that in like a salad that is more like done with like vinegar, like a very sour, almost pickled bean kind of thing, because it's Central Europe, I guess, basically. And we kind of pickle everything in vinegar because that's just like how we are, a bit sour, maybe. Legumes, yeah, in general, like yeah. No, the thing is, that no, so the thing with like the fava beans is you can turn them into like the same kind of like paste that you do with chickpeas when you turn them into hummus. You can do something like that, and you can add like raw onions and some garlic and some spices, and then dip your meat or bread into that and eat it like hummus, basically. And it's absolutely fucking delicious. And no, protein is the word I was looking for. So like beans have a lot, like legumes in general have like a high protein content, like very much up there, you know, which why soy is also beans and stuff. Um, but speaking of like when I was in Athens, we always go to this one place. It's an amazing small restaurant. It's near to the market square, and it's uh one of those like really traditional places. Been there for like 150 years by now, and you don't order. You just like sit down and you get whatever's on the menu that day, and just like they drop everything on the table. You have like one big bowl of everything, and everyone eats out of the same bowl, and you just get glasses and like a big jug of wine. And whenever the jug of wine is empty, they'll just like give you another one. And it's super cheap, and they always have like a big, huge pile of fava and some bean soup and some freshly like fried sardines, and amazing place, amazing stuff. Yeah, lentils are also amazing. Lentils, chickpeas, like a lot of like most legumes are really good. But yeah, the stuff you need to like double cook and everything is and soak them, and it's a lot of work. But that's the thing. Like we have the broad, we have broad beans, and the broad beans and green beans is like sort of like the German style of bean, and obviously you can get all the other stuff as well. But that's sort of like the more traditional beans that you get around here. Yes, exactly, Chantal. And they keep for, well, not forever, but they keep very long. Unlike other protein sources like meat and stuff, where you're like, I don't know. Obviously, you need to cool meat and freeze meat and stuff, but beans you can keep for a while, and depending on what you do with them, very good stuff. Obviously, you can also just like combine meat with with legumes for like even more protein, I guess. Ooh, buckwheat. Have you ever tried? You guys ever tried the Breton crepe, the galette? It's like crepe, but it's made from buckwheat, and it's so good. Usually have them just like savory with like cheese and maybe onions, and cheese with them, and some mushrooms and maybe some ham on it. And it's so good because buckwheat's a pain in the ass, but it actually tastes really good. I guess this is no longer a booktube channel. This is now a beantube channel. Mayakoba. I've never heard of that one. Okay, yeah, that sounds easy. Like I'm a very lazy person. I'm not good at cooking because it takes too long. It makes me very it frustrates me. Although I sometimes do cook like the German version of pasta, which is a very different thing, sort of Spätzle. I don't think there's a way to translate it, but like you have to homemade it. You make the dough, and you can either spread it low on like a on like a board, and then like cut small strips and push them into the water to boil them, or you use like a specific press, like a noodle press for that, and you have to have like a incredibly high. So I shouldn't say that. Like a very high egg content is like a key part to that. It's like high egg content. It's like you use like two, three, four, five eggs per 100 grams of wheat of flour. Basically, it's yeah, and really good stuff. But you what you do is basically you do that, and you take like a bowl, and you make you boil the pasta, you put the pasta in the water, and you take it out the first like level, and then you put like ground cheese on it, and then you put the next, and you put some fried onions on that, and then you put like more pasta, more noodles on it, and then you put more cheese and more onions. You layer that whole thing, and it all kind of melts together in this insanely unhealthy thing that will probably cover your calories for the next 5 years, and it's absolutely glorious. It's also a lot of work, and afterwards your kitchen will look like a fucking battlefield. God, biggest. But can you buy buckwheat? Like, how do you buy buckwheat if you don't happen to have your own fields, Bend? In what, because like in Germany being the weird country that we are, you can buy buckwheat flour, like already ground buckwheat flour, if you feel like it. If you want to just like bake with buckwheat for whatever reasons, you can just buy that. Kale, 13 years. No, but we have like a special like pasta press thing. It's uh, okay. Let's bring this back to books in the weirdest way possible. So there is because of like the Spätzle thing being that very specific Swabian thing, right? Spätzle is a very specifically like Swabian thing, and so the press in German is called a Spätzle Schwab, because it's a Schwab being German for Swabian, right? It's the press is called like that, and the main manufacturer for that is in fact called Kull, like Kull the Barbarian by Robert E. Howard, and it's why I had to buy one of those. I was like, you want to buy Kull the Spätzle Schwab instead of like Kull the Barbarian? I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm gonna do that. Exactly, Kale. Exactly that. Um, well, beyond that, Kale, I don't know. I don't necessarily count like weeks and stuff. Like, obviously, when I don't go to festivals or concerts, and I don't go, and I don't record stuff for YouTube or do live streams or whatever, then I don't drink. I mostly live off tea and, well, beer when I do like stuff when I do heavy metal stuff or book stuff, but otherwise I don't necessarily drink that much. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Gods. Oh God, that was bad. Um, but that's kind of the things I try to not just like sit in my room alone and drink. That's not something I try to do. It's like I try to, either do something like record a video or be with friends or something, because I'm certainly aware of the fact that I do drink a lot, and I try to not let it go completely out of hand is what I'm trying to say. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Wait, coal season, that's when you all read books about that guy from Atlantis, right? Kale, I wouldn't know. I have not tried enough illegal drugs to have like an informed opinion on that one. And since weed is now legal in Germany, at least for now, I know even less. Let me put it this way: the best illegal drug is the one that works for you and doesn't actually hurt you too much, and hopefully doesn't cost you too much. So whatever that is for you, that's your best illegal drug. Although I will never ever endorse anything illegal, but yeah, I have no opinion on that. So yeah, I can't help you there. Things like I'm in the wrong genre of stuff, right? Heavy metal is not the kind of genre that goes too deeply into the illegal stuff. Now, most people just drink and, yeah, smoke weed, and I guess some people, do acid or whatever. But the variety is very limited there. And so far, I don't run like a product testing YouTube channel, so how would I know? Oh, that's an interesting thing I want to talk about. So, as I said, I was reading a lot of like the Order Lord stuff over the last couple of days. Um, Sharp turn in topic, and Order Lord obviously died of cancer in the early 90s. So first she had like breast cancer and had surgery for that, and then everything was fine, and then she had like a tumor in her liver, and decided to go with homeopathy and anthroposophical medicine. And for that, she went to a clinic in Switzerland. And there's a book, one of her writings. It's called A Burst of Light, which is basically her diary from that time. And since I went to like a Waldorf, like a Steiner school in Germany, and obviously anthroposophy is, in fact, the Rudolf Steiner thing, and they do, homeopathy and weird alternative medicine stuff. Reading that reading that diary of hers while she is in Switzerland, and first, like the first couple of entries, everything is super nice. She's like, "Oh, this is cool," and then her slowly realizing how weird the whole thing is. That was some really intense reading for me because I'm like, yeah, you know, I get this. It's kind of scary. It's very culty. I hope not. I really hope not, Chantal. But so reading that was like really interesting to see someone from the outside. Like, no, I don't want to get like any more like surgery or whatever. I'm gonna, try alternative medicines. And you're like, the one people you had to end up with is the fucking Steiner people, which are, as insane as you can get. And then you do like your really eurythmy, and you do like have all these like, because it's like a very holistic sort of like cultish worldview where like everything has to work. Buildings don't have right angles, and then there's dietary things, and there's like specific colors have specific meanings and all of that. And you have a lot of people believing in that kind of stuff. And you have someone like Audre Lorde as her, black feminist lesbian warrior poet, which is her self-description, ending up there and slowly realizing that there's a lot of reasons why the people that actually run this place are not exactly going to be, very happy with her. I would not lick any toads in Australia. Like, I feel that might be worse than anything else. It's probably the same as everywhere else, just like turn to 11 and it'll make you, do Australian things. By which I mean, do sick burnouts until the cops burn your car, and just, be Australian, I guess. I think, like, let's say, Ben, I think the problem with like why a lot of this holistic stuff works, sort of, for some people, is that unless like if it's something very serious, then you're fucked if you go to some holistic place. But because of like the way we run a medical system, even in Germany, with like more or less universal healthcare and everything, right? The way we run this means that like most people go to a doctor, the doctor looks at you, and you can read that with Audre Lorde's diaries. It's like, yeah, I went to this place and the doctor told me what to do because he knew already what was going on. And I'm like, I want to think about this before I decide about what to do next, right? Um, and he's like, no, this is what you have to do because, and the thing is, like, most like holistic doctors, or doctors, is a weird term, right? Most holistic practitioners of stuff, what they do is they actually listen to patients. And if you have like nothing too serious, if it's something that kind of will sort itself out over time, all you really need is someone to actually listen to you and hear you and accept the fact that you are unwell, and that will do a world of good. But like, because of our medical all our medical systems being absolutely fucking overtaxed, most doctors don't have the time for that. So people going to a doctor sucks, and it feels bad, and you don't want to do that, and you always feel like the doctor's just looking at it's going to process you like the next fucking 500 patients, and you want to be taken seriously as an individual. So I get the appeal of holistic practitioners and all of that crap. And if all you have is, as I said, like something that kind of will sort itself out by just maybe taking some time off and relaxing for a while, and all of that stuff, because so much of for a lot of like less serious like illnesses, that's going to be enough, right? Then that's fine. The problem is the people that have something like cancer or some others like serious, the kind of condition that actually really requires a direct like medical invasive procedure or whatever. and those people going to a medical to that kind of holistic practitioner and go holistic practitioner and they go, well, I feel bad. It's like, well, yeah, well, I guess you have like liver cancer. That's kind of bad. Maybe you should take some mistletoe injections. That'll help, right? And no, it's not. That's not how that works. So that's sort of like where I don't know how to fix that, but I see why a lot of people sort of drift to those alternative or you know, holistic or whatever practitioners, because for the first time they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel understood, or at least taken seriously in a way that in the kind of assembly line medical system that we by force have, because we don't have enough doctors and so forth. You don't. You go to a doctor, they do like the quick examination, go like, well, here's a prescription, you take these drugs and you're good. And I'm like, yeah, but you haven't even asked me how I feel, right? So I see where people are coming from. I just see that it can cause insane harm when we come to like, you know, severe illnesses like, say, you know, cancer and all kinds of other stuff that like requires actual medical, you know, procedures. Goodbye, also. Thanks for hanging out. Always appreciate it. Goodbye, Kale, and good luck at work. But yeah, it was super weird for me reading that whole diary of like her going like, no, I'm, you know, I'm not gonna do that. I did the whole like breast cancer surgery. I'm not gonna let you cut me up again, and you know we'll see how that goes. And working her way through that, and you go to. Not, I don't know if any of you have ever been to like a Waldorf school or like Steiner adjacent sort of like place, and they do seem sort of like super warm and friendly when you get there, and then slowly the horror sets in when you realize that like everything is slightly weird and slightly brainwashed and slightly out of kilter. And reading that through a diary, through like Audre Lorde's diary, and having like a sort of like um, sort of like connecting that to my own experience in those kind of places was just like really interesting and kind of scary. I came for the angry feminism, then I came for like the anthroposophical body horror, basically. Weird place. That's the other thing. I was looking at like No Life Forsaken is coming out in yeah, it's coming out in October, and I was like, how much Malazan do I have to reread so I'm back sort of like in the headspace to actually read No Life Forsaken and understand? Should I just reread The God Is Not Willing, or should I actually go and reread like more Malazan stuff? The journal is Audre Lorde's A Burst of Light. If you have Audible, oh wait, Chantal, you have Audible right now. You can just go and check the selected works of Audre Lorde, edited by Roxane Gay, and it's contained like most of it is contained in that. I'll put it in chat. Seriously, it's some really rough reading because Overlord, black lesbian feminist, mother of two, breast cancer survivor, lots of more other stuff, and yeah, rough stuff. But I highly recommend reading the whole thing because some really important stuff on intersectionality in feminism, in anti-racism, in anti-homophobia. All of the stuff, all the good stuff. Some very angry poetry in there as well. And it's currently free on Audible in the US. That's why was like, check it out, because right now it's part of the Plus catalog, so you can get it for free. And yeah, and there's one poem about a black teenager being killed by a white cop in New York, and that white cop then being sent free by a jury for whatever reasons, right? Um, with that wonderful quotes, I didn't even look at the size of the person, which is kind of says it all, right? Angry book, but it starts like the difference between poetry and rhetoric is being willing to die and being willing to let your children be killed. And I'm like, yeah. You are probably not a very happy person right now. Hmm? It's interesting because she does not actually end up doing like anything for her liver cancer, and she does at the end of the day actually die from it. But then again, it's liver cancer. It's not exactly a lot you can do about that one. And she just goes like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm just going to live my life until the end." And there's that wonderful quote when also in that diary when she talks about like the whole fact that she knows she's going to die, and she's like, "I'm going to write poetry and until I'm going to write fire that comes out of my ears, not out of my mouth. I'm going to go out like a fucking meteor." And I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" Right? you know, really good stuff. I highly recommend it. It's very angry feminism, very angry black feminism in a lot of ways, and a lot of it is also about classism, all the other stuff. There's this wonderful thing in like a talk she gave to like to a conference on feminism in like 1981, and she's like, well, if if a white academic says I can't afford this, she means that she has to decide what to buy this month. If a black person says I can't afford this, what they mean is I'm on welfare that basically covers the needs of life in 1972. So why is this conference still not offering like free participation slots for people on welfare and who want to be here and want to run workshops? And why is this not covered? And it's like, yeah. Oh, right. Here's the thing, Ben. Now that I have done certain things that I shouldn't talk about, I'm I might in fact actually let me check that right now. If I can in fact actually get this right now, because I might. Oh, let me see. The sound of wild snail eating. Yes, I can in fact now actually acquire this for 1 credit or $10. The next thing underneath that is all, unfortunately, which, oh, not unfortunately, like really cool. Predator versus Predator. Giant sea snails take on reef-eating starfish. Which is, audible search. But yes, I can finally get to the sound of the wild snail eating. So next month, once I have audible credits again. Thanks, biggest, for that joke. Very important. So yeah, now that I have access to books that are region required for the US, I am going to check that out next month. Because right now I don't have a free credit, but I will have another Audible credit in 2 weeks, 2 and a bit weeks. I'm pretty sure I can keep myself occupied with something else until then. The snail one, yeah. I did not eat any snails this time around in Greece, but the Cretan place I always go to, they have like very, very tasty snails. Um, but yeah, let me know what you think. You guys think of the Audre Lorde thing if you read it, Ben and Chantal. Very much looking forward to finding out because yeah, holy shit, that woman was very, very, very intense, to put it mildly. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff, and I was wrestling with this, and I said that earlier when you go like, well, the world is burning, shit's fucked, right? Like, how can I just like sit down and just talk about like your average fantasy book? And obviously, there's political fantasy, right? And I try to pick those anyway, and I do pick those usually, but like it still sometimes feels weird. So I'm trying to read more of, and also as someone who grew up in Germany with its own very specific own sort of like a literary tradition and political and whatnot tradition, I try to sort of like catch up with my reading when it comes to say feminist and anti-racist and whatever literature from the US. And I've been reading some bell hooks. I've been reading some Judith Butler, and Audre Lorde is obviously part of that sort of like larger sort of thing. So and I was very glad I had read like some of her like shorter essays before because most of her stuff is relatively short. I will. Chantel, I will. I mean, obviously, I always make tea, but yeah, I will. I just found a bag of leftover Christmas cookies. I guess I'll use those for that. But yeah, so that's like one of the things I'm trying to do right now. What with the larger political situation is trying to read up on stuff I can, on the one hand, keep like the rage going, but on the other hand also like give me more like understanding. And the more I still like know of where stuff comes, it gives me an illusion of control. It's still not control, right? It's more like a feeling less. It's that feeling of being less lost, still lost but less lost, because I can at least see some sort of lights of like how to navigate by. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with like a lot of the nonfiction reading, reading or for the first time in full after having read parts of it previously, reading something like The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon and in full, and reading more of Audre Lorde, and reading that kind of stuff, because if all the fascists drag up their 1950s stuff, I think it makes sense to also read the 1950s and 60s and 70s stuff to sort of like see where that conflict is kind of coming from. But there's also like a couple of interesting books coming up fairly soon that I'm looking forward to. Quinn Slobodian has a new one coming up called Hayek's Bastards, and I'm very much looking forward to that one. And not only because of the title. Um, yeah, Octavia Butler, obviously, for fiction, definitely Octavia Butler. And see, that's like one of the things. You have that diary. In that diary, like you have that thing. Like I went to that conference, and Octavia Butler's there also was also there, and I'm like, oh, awesome. Audre Lorde is happy to see Octavia Butler. I guess we're on the same page there. The thing, like obviously, they operate in different spaces. Lorde being a poet, and sometimes essayist. Butler being more of a novelist, and Bell Hooks being more of like a theoretician in a lot of ways, but they all kind of work in the same sort of like space, trying to figure out how to do black feminism, how to work in like black culture, how to work in feminist culture, and how to sort of like do that intersectional sort of thing, which is important. I still need to read more Ray Bradbury. He just doesn't sort of click with me. He's too American for me, I think, Ray Bradbury. Like, I did really enjoy the Martian Chronicles. Really good. I do like I mean, Fahrenheit is fine. Something like Dandelion Wine, phew, I don't know. Something Wicked is really good though. I guess I'm more in the Harlan Ellison sort of like spectrum, and obviously like angry stuff. I want to read more William S. Burroughs though. It's something I sort of kind of read to need more of. I mean, I've read Naked Lunch, and that was a trip. Yeah, and see, that's kind of the problem, right? Is that you're touching on something important there, Daniel. Is that a lot of people, yeah, know that they're fucked over, and they don't necessarily know why. And especially when you go to the sort of like political left, a lot of people lack the words when it comes to explaining that why. Because yes, this is stuff's complicated, and the right has like very simple answers. It's I don't know if you, Daniel, or anyone else has ever read that essay on structural anti-Semitism by Moïse Postone, amazing Marxist political theorist. Wrote stuff on labor theory and so forth, and he has this really good essay that he originally wrote in German, then later wrote one in English as well. Like, he was Canadian, but he spoke German. And he was explicitly sort of like reacting to the German left at the time. And what he does is sort of like take Marxist like the Marxist the Marxist term of fetish, which obviously has its own problems. But it goes like, the world is like fucked up and complicated, and we don't actually know how stuff works, but we create a fetish that kind of binds all of that. So what we do is in those situations, we try, if we lose control or like lose understanding of the complexity of the world, we need to create objects that kind of explain for us how we're fucked. And in lots of situations, for historical reasons, that ends up to be Jews. It doesn't have to be, but like for historical reasons, it often ends up to be Jews at the time. It's like early 1980s, and we need to understand that. And you go back and go like, yeah, that sure, man, that's super simple. Now you say that, but like he he does sort of like build that sort of like theoretical underpinning of like how that works from like a Marxist perspective, and you can then maybe go from there and try to sort of like unwind that sort of like puzzle and try to come up with like explanations that work and at least explain where stuff comes from. And but it takes a lot of like good writing to do that in a lot of ways, and I don't know how to do that. Oh shit, yeah, with that, oh fuck, that's bad, Chantel. I hope nothing happens anytime soon. Like I know you were in the military for a long time. I was like, is your son actually actively interested in doing like military service or something, or is that something he doesn't want? And is it something that you don't want him to do? Because I'm always careful with like people that actually were in the military when it comes to like talking about that. Because as someone who obviously wasn't, it's very easy to be dismissive of of the military and of being a soldier and stuff like that. So I don't know. Was just like wondering if that's but obviously you don't have to talk about that if that is too personal. Because I can see how that can be like really complicated if you have that background, that experience, and some people go out and go like, well, actually, it was fine, was a job and so forth, and then some people go and really love it, and some people go out and like really hate it, and so I can see how that can be really complicated. Okay, well, if he's a pacifist, then yeah, not good. Yeah, then that's clear. See that's like another thing that I found really interesting with Wizard of the Pigeons, to bring it back to that one, because the um the forward for the 2020 edition of that book, and if you haven't read it, and I'm not going to go too deeply into it, the forward from 2020 was interesting, but it's Megan Lindholm, who is Robin Hobb, and she wrote about like how her brother went to Vietnam, and wrote a lot about like how it not only, and I think that's like the really valuable part, is like not only about like how it felt to people who went to Vietnam and came back or didn't come back, but like also how it destroyed a lot of people, who had partners, who had like lovers go, sometimes husbands, sometimes boyfriends or whatever, go to Vietnam, come back changed, how that destroyed not just the people that actually fought in the war, but like how there's like a traumatic cost to the people that stayed in the US, and how to do all of that. And she's like, well, this book is like my attempt of giving everyone at least sort of like a place to imagine that maybe there's like something cool not cool, like something good, at least for some of the people that came back differently, and maybe there's some hope there. And I found it like really interesting, and very Robin Hood to go like, well, there's a cost like for everyone, not just for the people that actually go to the front line, but like also the people you leave behind, because it changes everyone. Like I don't know about the military. I'm obviously I've like never had the chance to be in the military, even if I wanted to. I feel like in general, like we kind of need to have some sort of like fighting force. There's obviously a lot of like really dumb shit happening in any form of military, because you have these hierarchical structures where everyone joins, gets like the absolute fucking shit treatment for the first year, and once you're like one rank higher, you're the ones who get to treat the next people like shit, and you sort of like perpetuate these like forces of these like structures of domination, which you maybe you need them or maybe you don't. I, I don't think like being a soldier is fun. Is what I'm saying, and most of the time, I guess it's because so much time is sort of like being a very small person, like a large like structure, and like every large structure pro- produces like just so much fucking bullshit you kind of have to deal with, because it's a large structure and everything has to be generalized, and suddenly you have to I don't know, guard fucking porta potties for whatever reason, and you're like, how's that gonna help? How's that gonna save the fucking country? How did you like this Immortal, Ida? Curse of Callian is Master Bujold, right? Louis Master Bujold. And, well, Jonathan Strange is a long book. I did like it, but it's a very long and detailed. If you like Edwardian novels, if you're into Bronte and Jane Austen stuff, right? You get a lot of stuff out of it. If you like British, very British whimsy stuff, fairy stuff, whimsy fairies that are also incredibly fucking dangerous, because you don't want to, hang out with fairies, then Jonathan Strange is a really good book. But it's also like, I don't know, 1,200 pages long. So, it's going to take you a while. I think Curse of Callion is much shorter. See, I kind of like, I think like the issue there in a lot of ways, I think in the Chantal, is that in that situation, now I would say right on, fucking punch that motherfucker, right? But it's also about losing control, and obviously I don't know your son, but like in a lot of situations, I I feel like if you're a very controlled person, if you try to sort of like keep control of what you're doing acting on impulse is scary, just like even beyond just the thing you do, because it kind of shows you that like if the right trigger happens, you are capable of fucking violence, and you are capable of actually actively causing harm. And what if that trigger is not justified? What if, right? And I can see how that can be insanely fucking scary. I still think that breaking that kid's nose is a good thing, but that's me being mean. But I still haven't read Lord of Light. I still haven't read Lord of Light. What I find interesting is that everyone talks about like Lord of Light, and um, it's so good about like Buddhism, and I'm like, I thought it was about like Hinduism. Isn't it about like Hindu gods and stuff? But I haven't read it, so what do I know, right? Yeah, I mean, like seeing the currents, seeing Hexath, I'm like, holy fuck! It's like you don't want to be you know, you don't want to fight for that motherfucker. To say nothing of the president, I'm like, if that's Secretary of Defense, you might want to seek yourself like another army. But then, he's an alcoholic and has questionable tattoos. I guess he might be the most representative, like any army has ever been. But that's me being very cynical. Sorry if that came across as like offensive, Chantal. I didn't want to, didn't want to offend you there. I was like, you know, yeah. So let's hope for the best. How long will you stay in Mexico for the like tooth thing in like after the 2 weeks when you go there? Like if all goes well. So once the main character in Lord of Light dies, do they then have like a bloody war about the fucking tree that he lived under? Because that's like the main thing I remember about like Buddhism, the history of Buddhism is like all the wars everyone fought about the fucking Bodhi tree and chopping it down and carrying it to different places and stuff. But yeah, I haven't read Lord of Light yet. I will have to in the future. It'll happen, but I guess I'll take some time. There's some other books that I've like higher priority, like Gotham, New Gotham, which are two like each about like 1,000 pages histories of New York from like 1850 to like 1920 or something. Like one covers like 1850 to like 1890, and the other one from like 1890 to 1920. So no, I did not, Ida. I have only read the Amber books. I am not that deep into Zelazny. I've only read Amber, the 10 Amber books, which I enjoyed. I've read those twice. Just just tell him to make sure he never steps into a fucking osprey. I guess that's like the safety advice for the Air Force. Um, one of the things I'm really looking forward to is like, and that's one of the things that like the US doesn't get, because sometimes there's like region locked stuff that Europe gets and the US doesn't get. But what's his face? Keep forgetting the author. Imaro, which is like one of the few sort of like black sword and sorcery characters, gets like a re-release this year. It might already be out, or maybe it's coming out next month. Charles Saunders, that's the author. Oh, it's already out. Gods, should probably get that very soon. Yeah, like all of Zelazny is fairly short. Amber, I just really like sort of like Corvin's voice in the first part. Like the Merlin stuff is still really cool, but like the Corvin stuff is just like, Corvin's really good. The audiobook is also really good for the Corvin stuff. The Corvin stuff is narrated by, oh god, what's his face? He was in the new Battlestar Galactica, and I keep forgetting his name, but like a you know relatively well known actor. He narrates the stuff, and with like first person narratives, I feel like having like a really like an actor that really gets into it does do a lot of heavy lifting with like audiobooks. The difference is, Chantel, that you live in California and know that has like varied climate, but Ida lives in the UK and that has one climate, and that one climate is rain and 5 degrees, roughly, I guess. I'm obviously simplifying here, but which is also what we have here. So yeah, I have like a lot of this Zelazny to catch up to, but you know, so many books. I'm gonna go for that Lord Dunsany thing next. I guess like after I finish the Summer of Fire and Blood, which to be fair is like a really good title for a history book, and then maybe the Buffalo Hunter Hunter. What I find interesting because it's sort of like a historical horror with some sort of like native sort of like part of it is about like native spirits and whatnot. And from the list of narrators in the audiobook, at least some of the narrators seem to also have like a tribal background, which I think is a really good idea to have that kind of person narrate your audiobook and bring some level of at least connection to it there. Be careful, Biggest, or she'll send Rain Cromwell over to you. No, we're like around like 5 or 6 at night at this point, I think, roughly. During the day, it's like 10 to 12 ish. In Athens, it went up to like 20 last week. God's biggest. Now that's a good argument there, right? Right there, Ida. All right, guys, we've been doing this for like 4 hours now. I think it's time to slowly wind this down because I want to get up at whatever time tomorrow morning, and not gonna get stuff done, but do the breakfast sprinting thing and go to the gym and get really cracking on that fucking Mormonism video because otherwise I'm gonna read like 10 more books on Mormonism, and even the gods of the Mormons will have something to say against that at some point. So yeah, let's slowly wind this down. Thanks everyone for hanging out. I do appreciate that. Sorry for taking out the tooth and turning into like pirate ref after like half the streams, but it just really got on my nerves at some point, and I guess that's what we all have to live with for now. I mean, you have to. Yeah, I'm gonna shower tomorrow because I don't have a hair dryer and I don't want to go to bed with like long wet hair. It kind of sucks. Good night, Apollo. Before you run away, Apollo, if you want to talk about, if you want to tell me why you don't want to talk about your thoughts on the Wizard of the Pigeon thing in public, let me know. Like, I'm curious, is what I'm saying, right? You don't have to tell me, but I was like, wait, did I say something wrong there? I hope not. But yeah, good night, everybody. Let's stay, everybody stay safe. Let's hope nothing terrible happens until we all wake up again. Which is, unfortunately, is no longer, a given. I really, really appreciated it. Thanks, everybody. And let me find that button that I need to actually press to actually end this. All right. See you guys around, and thanks, everybody.